White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki suggested Friday that it is okay for kids to eat their lunches outside in cold temperature in an effort to maintain safety amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Psaki said she believed the vast majority of parents appreciate such measures being taken by school system to limit the spread of the coronavirus among elementary age school children. She said the Biden administration hoped to get to a point of normalcy for everyone.
Also being awarded a Medal of Honor is Sergeant First Class Christopher Solis, who will receive the Medal of Honor also posthumously for service as the leader of the Special Operations Unit in Afghanistan on July 12, 2018. Sergeant Solis led an operation to clear an area of enemy forces. When a large enemy force attacked, Sergeant First Class Solis voluntarily exposed himself to intense enemy fire multiple times to retrieve and employ a heavy weapon system, direct and lead a medical evacuation via helicopter, and act as a physical shield for his team, the aircraft and its crew. After being hit by enemy fire, he motioned to the aircraft to depart rather than remain to load him. His selfless actions saved the life of the evacuated partnered force member and almost certainly prevented further casualties. He died of the wounds he received in combat. And finally, Major Sergeant Earl Plumley will receive the Medal of Honor for his service as a weapons sergeant in Afghanistan on August 28, 2013. Then Staff Sergeant Plumley responded to a complex enemy attack when a massive explosion tore a 60-foot breach in the base's perimeter wall and 10 insurgents wearing suicide vests poured through. Staff Sergeant Plumley and 5 Special Operations members mounted 2 vehicles and raced toward the site of the detonation. Without cover and with complete disregard for his own safety, Staff Sergeant Plumley repeatedly advanced on the enemy force, engaging multiple insurgents with only his pistol, killing 2 insurgents and engaging combatants at close range, including an insurgent whose suicide vest exploded a mere 7 meters from his position. Undeterred, he joined a small group of American and Polish soldiers who moved to counterattack the infiltrators and carried a wounded soldier to safety. So the President looks forward to honoring 2 of those individuals posthumously and 1 on next Thursday when he awards the Medal of Honor. With that, Colleen, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, thanks, Jen. I wanted to ask 2 questions. One is, can you talk a little bit about the White House outreach to Senator Manchin and other senators on the Build Back Better Act in relation to the recent CPI index reports today? And then the second question is, I wondered what else the White House can do or should be doing with regards to women's reproductive rights, given everything that's happening. Specifically today, there was a ruling out of Texas that keeps the restrictions intact while the lawsuits play out. So I just wondered what else, aside from the codification of Roe in Congress, can and should the administration be doing?
Absolutely. Well, let me take the first one first. Let me first say that as it relates to the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index data this morning, let me start with the data. The data was taken in November. Even since that time, over the course of the last nearly 2 weeks, we've seen a decrease in costs in some of the areas that account for a big percentage of the rise in inflation. So about 50% of these inflation numbers, is attributed to the rising gas prices and the rising car prices. On gas prices, and we had a chart, maybe they'll pull it up again, that Brian Deese, our NEC director, talked about just yesterday. What we've seen in recent days are gas prices are coming down from their peak, and this obviously is not captured in the data, since the data was through the course of November. So in 20 states, gas is below their 20-year average in real terms, and natural gas is down 25% from its November average. We attribute this to a range of factors, including the president tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in coordination with partners around the world. But more broadly, we're seeing positive signs of supply chain bottlenecks being addressed that are helping address this as well. And we expect those numbers to continue to decrease across the country. The other piece and gas, I should also note, on the wholesale market is down over 30 cents per gallon since its peak, which is, again, a good sign. The other piece, as we're seeing as it relates to cars, is wholesale car prices are down as well. Or used car prices are down as well. So when car dealers are purchasing cars, they are at a lower cost than they were before for a range of reasons, including the availability of chips, because we've helped solve some issues in the supply chain. That means that as we look to the first quarter of next year, or the first couple of months of next year, those car prices are going to keep coming down. One other third note, let me just note in the data, one of course, the factors as it relates to costs that consumers are experiencing, the American people are experiencing, is of course the cost of food when you go to the grocery store. 25% of that, our economists or economic experts estimate, is related to meat prices. You go, you buy a pound of burger, you buy a poultry, whatever it may be. And our assessment here, and we've taken steps as it relates.
El Salvador saying that the U.S. government has nothing to do with democracy in any country.
It's hard for me to even know the context of that statement. The United States just hosted a 2-day democracy summit where we announced an extensive financial commitment to contribute to the preservation of democracy around the world. As the president conveyed, democracy works best with consensus and cooperation, and he's also noted that we all need to continue to work harder to preserve our own democracy. I don't have an exact reaction to them. Go ahead.
Two quick foreign policy questions.
Sure.
One is on Afghanistan. Yesterday, as was mentioned earlier, the head of Central Command did an interview, and during that interview, he said that the number of al-Qaeda members in Afghanistan has, in his words, probably slightly increased. Does that surprise the president? Is that a concern for the president?
Well, I would say first that President Biden made clear from the start of the Afghanistan withdrawal process that it's critical for us to retain our over-the-horizon with counterterrorism abilities, our abilities to prevent, detect, and disrupt terrorism threats without having a permanent military presence on the ground that could be a target. And that is something he is committed to ensuring. Our national security team is working to ensure we have the capabilities, working with partner countries in the region who share that concern, who do not want terrorism to have a birthplace or rebirth place in the region. And we have also been clear that we will not allow terrorists to threaten the homeland from Afghanistan, and we will hold the Taliban accountable. I know we obviously do regular assessments for from our intelligence team on this, from the CIA director, from our director of the National Intelligence Agency. I'd really point you to them on their assessments, but the president takes his commitment to ensuring they do not rebuild, they do not gather, and they do not pose a threat to the homeland quite seriously.
On Russia, just a few days after President Biden's conversation with President Putin, is it fair to say that the ball is now in President Putin's court, in the sense that the next step is up to him as to whether or not he pulls back his troops from the Russian-Ukrainian border or he moves into Ukraine? What's your assessment there? Is that a fair, accurate assessment?
Well, I would say first that our objective continues to be diplomatic discussions. And to go back to Jeff's earlier question, those could take